Welcome to The Explainer. You know, when we think about World War II, we think of bombs, bullets, massive armies. But what if I told you that a huge part of the Allied victory came down to something else entirely? An ingenious piece of technology you've probably never even heard of.
Yeah, take it from historian Paul Fussell, a guy who was actually there, an infantryman. He said, we couldn't have won the war without it. So what was it? A new kind of tank? Some top-secret code?
Well, the answer is probably not what you're thinking. Nope, it wasn't a weapon at all.
It was the simple, handwritten letter. Mail from home. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. Getting that mail to the front lines, that was one of the single biggest logistical nightmares of the entire war.
Okay, so to really get why the solution was so brilliant, you have to understand just how high the stakes were. I mean, for a soldier, a sailor, an airman stuck thousands of miles from home, a letter wasn't just a letter. It was everything.
And this wasn't just a nice to have. The US government knew it. They officially called mail a critical piece of war material. Think about that. Paper and ink, just as important as bullets for keeping up morale.
I mean, these letters were a literal lifeline. They connected millions of people across these vast, dangerous oceans. They were a constant reminder of what everyone was fighting for. You know, there's this story of a soldier on Guadalcanal who said his first letter from home was, quote, the best birthday present possible. That's powerful.
But here's the catch. This emotional lifeline, well, it had a huge physical problem. It was heavy, and I mean incredibly heavy.
See, at first, all that mail was way too bulky for airplanes, so it had to go by sea, and every square inch on those ships was precious. It was needed for troops, for weapons, for food. Mail? It was way, way down on the priority list. Just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, get this. Just 150,000 one-page letters weighed 2,575 pounds. That's over a ton. And that same batch of letters, the one that weighed over a ton, it filled up 37 mail sacks. 37! That's a staggering amount of space.
So you've got this heavy, bulky mail stuck on a slow cargo ship. That meant it could take a month or even longer to get to the front lines. And that's if it arrived at all.
So you see the problem, right? How on earth do you deliver billions of letters when every single ounce of cargo space is vital? The whole thing seemed impossible. Honestly, the military needed a miracle.
And in June of 1942, that miracle arrived. It was called V-mail. V for victory.
Now, the crazy thing is, the technology itself wasn't new. Microphotography had been around since the 1850s. The real genius here, and they adapted this from a British system called aerograph, was how they used it to solve this massive wartime mail problem. And the process was just fascinating. It was like this incredible production line. You'd write your letter, up to 700 words, on a special, free form. Then it would get censored, of course. After that, it was photographed onto a tiny frame of 16mm microfilm. Those reels of film, each one holding over 1,500 letters, were flown overseas. Near the front, they developed the film, printed onto small photo paper, and bam, delivered. It literally turned a mountain of paper into just a handful of film reels. The efficiency was, well, it was revolutionary. So let's go back to that batch of 150,000 letters. Remember? It weighed over 2,500 pounds and filled 37 mail sacks. With V-mail, that same batch weighed just 45 pounds, and it fit in one mail sack. One! It's just an incredible reduction. You're basically taking 37 sacks of mail and squishing them into one. That freed up tons and tons of cargo space for things that were, essential to actually fighting the war. And make no mistake, this wasn't some small, little side project. The scale of V-mail was absolutely immense. We're talking about 1 billion tiny victories.
Get this. Between 1942 and 1945, more than 1 billion V-mails were sent back and forth. 1 billion. It was this incredible bridge connecting the front lines with the home front.
It really did become this two-way superhighway for morale. About 556 million letters went to servicemen, and they sent 510 million back. And because it was all on film, it could go by air. So letters weren't just saved from the slow boat. They were arriving faster and way more reliably than ever before.
But the system wasn't perfect. It couldn't be. It came with some very real, very human trade-offs. For one thing, there was zero privacy. Every single letter was read by a censor. You couldn't send anything extra. No photos, no newspaper clippings. The final letter was tiny, about a quarter of the original size, so it could be tough to read. And here's a funny one, no lipstick kisses. They called it the Scarlet Scourge because the lipstick would actually gum up the photography machines. So yeah, it was pretty impersonal. You lost that special feel of your loved one's actual handwriting on their own paper.
But even with all those drawbacks, people totally embraced it. And you have to ask, why? Well, look at this quote from Ida Ellers, writing to her husband. She says she's sending V-letters because they say that only V-letters are sure to be delivered. And that's it right there. When your loved one is in a war zone, reliability and speed, they matter a whole lot more than sentimentality.
Because in the end, the form might have changed, but the feeling, that stayed the same. The words were what mattered. And V-mail, for all its quirks, did one thing perfectly. It preserved that essential human connection.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? In our age of instant emails and texts, what's the real weight of our words? V-mail is this incredible reminder that sometimes the biggest innovations aren't about inventing something brand new. They're about finding a truly ingenious way to deliver something that's always been essential. And that's our explainer for today.